The kids can go ahead and go to Seek now. Have fun. Oh, thank you. Our speaker today, I'm bringing it up on my phone, is Kyle Oris. Kyle is a cybersecurity analyst specializing in risk for a large healthcare organization, where he assesses digital threats and helps leaders make practical security decisions. He holds a degree in cybersecurity from Maryville University and has spent the past 8 years working in IT and security. Kyle focuses on separating real risk from cybersecurity hype, taking a calm, practical approach to digital safety. He's passionate about helping people understand technology without fear and is often the go-to tech support for friends and family. Outside of work, he enjoys reading and oil painting, creative outlets that balance his analytical work in cybersecurity. So without further ado.
Yeah. Wow. Hello, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for allowing me to be here and speak to you all today. I am also a relatively new member. Been here about, I think, 5 months officially. I could have swore it was only 2 or 3, but the time goes by so quickly. My name is Kyle Oris. I'm presenting to you today on cybersecurity. I actually prepended my original title with Cybersecurity for Humans, because after I was done writing the presentation, I realized that a lot of cybersecurity advice and presentations really fall into like one of two categories. It's either very basic rudimentary advice, like, update your phone, which is good and like you need to do that, but it's nothing anyone here couldn't just Google and find themselves. The other half is like more deep dives that I'd say they're just not fit for human consumption because they're just so hard to understand and you're left not knowing what on earth you just learned. So I wanted to try and bridge that gap with this presentation and give you guys a deeper dive into cybersecurity while also leaving you with practical, real tips and a good understanding of what I'm presenting here today. So I'll talk a little bit about myself, and we'll cover a few misconceptions in cybersecurity and wrap up with some what I call hidden threats. They're not hidden from like the cybersecurity community point of view, but they're just threats and risks that I don't think are conveyed outside of the cybersecurity industry very well. So I'll start a little bit of a goofy picture of me. That's back in college, like 2017 or 2018. We had this holographic headset at Maryville, and I just thought I'd share a more goofy, fun photo since I am still new and still getting to know everyone. So I graduated Maryville in 2020 with a degree in cybersecurity. I have about 8 years between working during university and then after graduating, 8 years of experience in IT and information security. And really one of my passions has always been teaching and presenting, and now getting to do that alongside cybersecurity is really exciting for me. So again, I'm grateful to be here and presenting to you all. Some hobbies, as we mentioned in the bio, I discovered oil painting late in 2025. I like art because I stare at a computer screen all day and everything is through a mouse and a keyboard, so being hands-on is so nice to get out of the digital world once in a while. I actually started art with photography in high school. We had a black and white film class, and we had our own dark room, and we developed our own photos, and that was an amazing experience to have.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Fort Zumwalt West. Yeah, the common St. Louis question. Everyone needs to know that. Yeah. And then, of course, I consider myself a lifelong learner. I love reading really any kind of nonfiction books. So since I'm sure you're curious, I mentioned oil painting. I want to share a few things that I painted since I'm sure it'll interest some people. And then one more thing that I'll share that I didn't talk about earlier is a lot of people in my life, family and friends, they refer to me, they use the term old soul, like that's just how they refer to me. And I'll let you deem yourself. I'll share my music listening habits.
Yeah.
If you recognize anything on this screen, Casey Kasem is my alarm clock. It goes off every morning. I guess I'm an old soul, so.
Yeah, I think you might be. Yeah.
No.
Sister, it's not
No.
so old.
All right. So to get started, I'll start with the misconceptions, and we'll cover two. We'll cover public Wi-Fi, because that seems to come up a lot as we work away from home. And then the question, is my device listening to me? Because I think we've all been there where you get a targeted ad and you're like, this thing, it had to be spying on me somehow. But I first want to cover the problem with misconceptions, lore, myths, whatever you want to call it. And I think everyone here, obviously in the ethical society, knows the problem with misconceptions already. But as applied to cybersecurity, I've really seen some people take like drastic measures to improve their security, but they actually are harming themselves. They're doing the wrong thing. Or I've seen some people very, very paranoid about something that just doesn't even exist. So I'm hoping to clarify just a few of those things to everyone so you're not going down the wrong rabbit hole or doing something that's not proactive for your security. And the first one is public Wi-Fi. Because the lore, if you hear people talk about public Wi-Fi, it's, this is what the Google AI overview says, and it's what you hear all the time. It's dangerous, it's unencrypted. If there's a hacker sitting next to you in the coffee shop, they could just steal your passwords, your credit card information, read your email. It's just out in the open and it's so dangerous. But that's actually not how it works anymore. The real answer to this question is no, public Wi-Fi is actually generally safe to use. And matter of fact, to call it easy for hackers to steal your data is not true anymore. It's actually quite difficult. There's a lot of hoops they have to jump through to do that effectively. And that's because of encryption. So all the data, whether you're using a phone or a computer or whatever, the data is protected and only you and the website you're talking to can read it. And the other way I look at it is, if it were truly so simple for hackers to just steal a password on public Wi-Fi just like that, we could never do anything online. We'd never have healthcare online, we'd never have banking, we'd never have any of that if it were just so simple. Like I said, I like to explain, I like teaching, so I want to explain why this is the case and kind of diagram it out. So the way I think of the internet, and especially public Wi-Fi, you can kind of relate it to like this image from the Big Bang Theory where they're in an apartment building, it's a shared space, and they have this mailbox, and you can see the table in front of Leonard has like all these packages and envelopes. And if you think of that like public Wi-Fi, like anyone in that building could just open an envelope and see what you're saying and who you're communicating with and what's in the message. And that's kind of, in a way, how public Wi-Fi works. So it seems very scary, like if someone's on the same Wi-Fi, they could just see what I'm communicating. But that's how it worked more so pre-2017. So pre-2017, that's when 50% and higher of websites online operated like postcards. Anything you sent was just out in the open. So you can imagine a postcard sitting there on that table. Anybody could just walk up and see what you're saying. Post 2017, over half of the internet, now today it's well over 90%. In day-to-day use, it's going to be 100% of the websites you use. Every little communication is encrypted, meaning it's your passwords and credit card details and whatever you're doing. Imagine it put into a safe with like billions and billions of locks that only you and the website can unlock. So even if there's a hacker on Wi-Fi, they might have the safe, they can't open it. And the number of combinations to that digital safe that a hacker would have to guess, to brute force and crack it open, is roughly the same as the number of atoms in the universe.
Oh my gosh.
And right now, there's no computer powerful enough to do that. However, by the end of the decade, there probably will be, but we have protection. Yeah.
Okay, so from time to time I get a website where my browser will warn me that it's not secure. Are you saying that the data there is operating like on that pre-2017 level?
Yes, yeah. So if you do go to a website where it says, oh, warning, there's not a lock, this website is unsecure, it means it's pre-2017 level. And you might have noticed, a long time ago they had like these green locks in the web browser, like the browser, and they got rid of that. And the reason why they got rid of it is because it used to be, if your website used one of these safes, oh, that means the website's good and you're talking to a legit source. Not anymore. Hackers can do this too. So just because it's encrypted doesn't mean it's safe. So that's why they got rid of it. But you're correct. If it does flag that, it means everything's out in the open. So like if you're going to a bank and it's like, oh, it's unencrypted, then that's probably not legit because you wouldn't want that all written out on a postcard for the world to see. So, yes. So this is really a better representation of how it works when we are on one of those like encrypted websites. Even if there is a hacker, sitting next to you at the coffee shop, or let's say a malicious individual in the lobby looking at the mail, they can see the to and from addresses, right? You still have that mailing address on the front, so they might be able to see like, you're going to Amazon.com or you're going to Bank of America or wherever you're going, but they can't open that safe per se and see exactly what you're doing. So I would invite, if you want, there's a website called hacklore.org, and over 100 cybersecurity professionals signed this open letter with a list of different advice. So the public Wi-Fi, scanning QR codes, don't charge your phone at the airport, all those things that we've heard. They ask that this advice be retired because it's not that there's zero threat here anymore. Like, technically there are things that could be done, but it's not where the risk is today. There's far bigger things, and this is part of the lore and misconception where people chase these things, but there's actually bigger risks to be mindful of. So, I think the question that's most interesting is my phone or my smart speaker or any of those listening to me when I'm not activating them? Because the lore, and I think everyone has probably experienced this, you see something in the store, you just talk about it, you don't Google it, and you tell your friend, and then you get an ad about it. And you're like, I didn't Google it, I didn't search it, I didn't even buy it. I was just standing next to the product, and now I have an ad. So it must have heard me talk to my friend about wanting that, because how else could it work? Well, the good news is no, it's not how this works. The bad news is they don't need to spy on you through a microphone. Because the truth is actually a little bit worse. And I don't want to freak anyone out, but like at the end, you'll probably wish they were spying on you through your microphone in a way. So the question is, how do we know that they're not secretly, your phone isn't secretly listening to you? And the big two obvious ones are, one, the battery would drain quicker than advertised. Like we know how many milliamps are in a battery and how long it should last. It would drain a lot quicker. There's also, you'd see network connections. So like in cybersecurity, we can monitor all the traffic coming from a device, and there would be a lot of unaccounted for traffic that we wouldn't know why it's there, and that would be a red flag that something's up, and we don't see that. And there's been studies where they look at tens of thousands of apps. There's even been people, they put a phone in a room of people talking and another one in a quiet room, and there's like no difference. I think the biggest culprit here, though, is more the human brain, and psychologically, there's like the frequency illusion. So like if you've ever heard a new word, and then all of a sudden you hear it like 7 times in a row after that, it's kind of the same with advertising. And then there's confirmation bias. So we all probably say hundreds of things a day that could be an ad, but they never turn out to be ads. So it's more likely coincidence than not. But if you think, well, it seems to happen too much to just be coincidence, you would also be right about that, because there is something else going on. It's not spying on you through your microphone, but it's companies called data brokers. And a data broker, it's a very simple business at a high level. They collect information about you, and then they sell it, usually to advertisers. And one data broker in America, they claim to have 3,000 different pieces of data for just about every American. These are big businesses, and it's not data like, oh, what car do you drive? No, it's how good of a driver are you? It's not where do you shop, it's are you a healthy or unhealthy eater? It's not how much money do you make, but do you spend your money responsibly? That level of detail. It can be very granular. So if you're wondering where do they get this information, because a lot of it seems very private, how could they possibly know this? This could be a whole hour, so I had to cut this down significantly. One is web browsing is the common one that I think people know. When you click a link online, you know that they're tracking what you're doing. That's how they advertise to you. Location is another one. So Burger King, they sent ads to everyone within 600 feet of a McDonald's to route them to Burger King, and it worked. So they know like to the nearest, at least nearest couple hundred feet where you are. And then there's Bluetooth beacons. I think right now mainly they're at like the front doors of stores. So like if your phone passes near that beacon, they know you walked into Walmart today, even if you have GPS turned off. I think in the future we'll see these beacons placed throughout the aisles of stores. So now they will know like, oh, you never went down the meat aisle, maybe you're vegetarian, I'll send you an ad for vegetarian meals or something. Like that granularity I think will happen soon. And then if you think, well, I shop in person, I don't do online shopping. Google partnered with MasterCard. They have 70% of all credit card and debit card transactions in America, so they know what you're buying even if you never touch a computer. Kroger, they make 35% of their income from selling your data about what you're purchasing.
Oh my
And the
gosh.
scary one is television. So all, or I should say most modern TVs from all the big brands, LG, Samsung, Sony, they have a computer chip, a special one that records every image displayed on the screen and all the audio played through the TV, and they then send that out to advertisers. So if you're watching a certain program, they know, oh, that's what you enjoy, maybe we'll target ads your way. And all of these companies that do this, they all sell data back and forth. It is a web of selling your data. So when you get a targeted ad, they know based on what you watch and what you buy and where you go and how you spend your money and all of that, they know all of that about you, so they can target ads to you with hyper accuracy. That's why it feels like they have to be listening. But there's so much statistics in this that they can give you an ad that's in a way kind of freaky how they do it, but they can. The other thing that I'll share too, this is the last one of the targeted advertising, but I thought it was good to share, is cars. One independent company, they dubbed all cars, just privacy nightmares on wheels, because the level of tracking that automotive companies claim to have, it doesn't mean they do, but like in their fine print, like you are signing away that yes, sexual activity. I don't know, it doesn't mean they are, but it means that if they happen to get that information, they can hold it about you. And if you have an older car, the apps on your phone can track your location. And a popular one, like Life 360, it's used to track, you can track the locations of friends and family members for like personal safety purposes. They were building driving profiles of everyone who used the app and sold that to insurance companies. And one man's rates went up, I think it was 21% for no reason. And eventually the data brokers revealed they had a 258-page report on his driving behavior. So it can be very scary and intimidating what these companies can do. Aside from privacy, though, is the cybersecurity aspect. So this was, I believe it was last year, a broker called National Public Data ironically collects very private data about us, such as our social security numbers, and they were breached. And 272 million social security numbers with your full name, address, and telephone number were released to hackers. So between that and all the breaches prior, I'm confident that probably over 80 or 90% of you, your social security number is out there somewhere, including myself, because I was part of this. So what's been happening now is you see these companies, and they are data removal services. There's a lot of them, but in Incogni, Delete Me, they are the big ones. And they advertise, sign up for our services, will help you remove your data. So I just want to share, I'm not necessarily going to tell everyone to buy one of these services, but at least share what they do and don't do so you can make that decision for yourself. And what they do is you provide your information, so you provide like your name, your address, and they will, on your behalf, reach out to hundreds upon hundreds of these data brokers that they know of and request that they delete your information. And legally, they are supposed to then delete your information. So people who had one of these services, their information was not part of this breach because National Public Data complied and deleted their information. So it can protect you from some data breaches. These are usually monthly or annual subscriptions. And if you think, well, I'll just pay for the first month, they'll send out the letters and then I'll cancel. Unfortunately, the letter, it tells the data broker to delete your information. It doesn't tell them they can't gather it again. So they immediately will start gathering it again. So you need to maintain the subscription to constantly send letters. And the other thing they can do, people search websites. You Google someone's name, phone number, you can usually find where they live. There's like white pages and all this stuff online. I think they do a pretty good job at getting your information off of those sites. So like for me, it's also like a personal safety thing. I don't want people to just find out where I live based on my name, and I think they do a good job there. So that's the benefits. The limitations, there are some data brokers who just refuse to comply. It's actually a relatively small number, but there are some who just refuse. And as far as like the web of ad tracking, like Kroger's still going to sell your shopping data, Samsung's still going to monitor what you watch. Like it's not going to stop that. But I think for the personal safety and like getting your name out of databases for breach purposes, I think there is some benefit to these services. So the good news, if there is any, is that you can kind of breathe a little easier around your devices. They're not like secretly listening to what you're saying, so that's good. The bad news is everything else I had to share with you. And really, the unfortunate news really is that aside from buying one of those services, there's not much more I can tell you to protect yourself from the data brokers. Unfortunately, this is more of a legal thing, and we need laws to protect ourselves from these than it is a cybersecurity thing. So with that, I want to change gears and talk about some hidden threats. Again, like I mentioned, they're not necessarily hidden as if like they're unknown. I think they're commonly known in the cybersecurity community, but I don't think they're shared as broadly as they should be. And the first one is protecting your accounts online. Because I think everyone at least is a little bit concerned. We probably had a friend who their Facebook account got hacked or something and they send messages. I don't think anybody wants that to happen to them. But before I talk about that, I want to open with just a question. So we all have dozens and dozens of online accounts. These are just a few examples of some that you might have. And the question for you all is like, which one account, if you could pick one account, which one would you be most concerned about being hacked? Or which one are you like most worried about?
Online banking.
Banking, email, healthcare. So I mean, of course, they're all important and we need to protect them all. But my opinion, and what people might not know, is email for me. And it's because if you've ever had to reset your password, which should be all of us, because I don't think anybody can get through life without forgetting a password or being locked out. If you've done this, they all work the exact same way. You enter your email address, and they send you an email with this magic link that you click, and you just reset your password to your bank, to your social media, to whatever. So if I'm a hacker and I get to your email, I just go to every single online account you have, click the forgot password button, and I just reset your password to like every account tied to that email address. It is like a master way into everything else. So I just think email sometimes doesn't get the attention it deserves from a security standpoint because this isn't something that people commonly think about with email, like how it can be used to get into other accounts. We just think about it as communication, but it's more than just that. So the good news is, though, that protecting yourself is relatively actually easy. For your email account and all of your accounts, this is the basic advice that you've probably heard. One, use a password manager. Every account you have, email or otherwise, should have a very long, unique password that you don't use anywhere else. And what's great nowadays is password managers are everywhere, and a lot of them are free. So if you have an iPhone, I think since like the past year, they've included a free passwords app. Google Chrome, the web browser, can manage your passwords for you. If you want something that's like tech agnostic, like an independent company, there's one called Bitwarden. I mentioned them because they have a very generous free tier. Some services will like let you save 10 passwords for free. Their free tier is unlimited. So what's nice is now password managers are accessible to everybody, which is great because I don't think security should be gated off because of monetary costs. So this is all free for everybody to use. The second big one is MFA, multi-factor authentication. You likely know it as that annoying 6-digit code that you get texted to you and it like delays you being able to log in. That's important to turn on everywhere you can because even if a hacker does get into your email and does reset your passwords, they're not going to get that 6-digit code. So that can protect all of your other accounts as well. Now a slightly better way of doing the MFA codes is to get an authenticator app. They're like commonly just referred to as authenticator apps overall. And they put the 6-digit codes in an app in your phone. So even if you're without cell service or your phone service gets hacked or disrupted, you still have those codes on your device. There's hundreds and hundreds of these apps out there. One is called Google Authenticator. I recommend Google Authenticator because it's free and it's very bare bones. Like there's not one button that doesn't need to be there, so it's straightforward and I really enjoy it for that. Which leads me to the second thing I wanted to talk to you about is being careful downloading apps on your phone, even if you have an iPhone. I think people who have iPhone just kind of think they're superior in a cybersecurity sense. Like, this thing can't be hacked, and it's like, well, there are still things you should be concerned about. So I realized when making the presentation that I made a recommendation, right? I said, Google Authenticator, it's an app, and some of you may go and download that application. But the problem is, so this is a screenshot of my phone. I went to the App Store, the official Apple App Store, and I searched Google Authenticator exactly, the exact app I told you to get. But the first and third results are fake. They are paid advertisement slots, and they know, because they're paid ad slots, they know you searched Google Authenticator. So I wouldn't hold anyone accountable. Like, if you downloaded the first one, I wouldn't, it's understandable, because it says Authenticator for Google, secure your Google accounts. It has the big G logo with all the colors. Like, it looks like that's the one you should get, but it's not. It's actually the middle one there. And this one might be a little bit more obvious because of the title of the app, but this happens everywhere. And in the first one, it's not malicious. In this case, these apps aren't going to like hack you and steal your data, but they are going to charge you fees. They're going to say, oh, you need a subscription and whatever else. What gets scarier is this same technique of sneaking in fake apps or fake websites. It's used all across the internet. It's not just on app stores, but Google searches is the big one. The first few things you search might not be what you were actually intending to look for, and you could click on a malicious website that could do a lot more harm. So it seems like it's kind of like a minefield. Like, what do I do? There's all these bad things coming at me. But the good news is that it's actually pretty easy to identify some red flags and to know what you're looking for. So like in this example, it might be hard to see, but at the very top, like there's a blue ad icon. So oh, that's an ad, that's not what I was searching for. The little person icon, like right there, that identifies who made the app. So the first one was made by San Mobile. Like, has anyone heard of San Mobile before? I have no idea who they are. That one, the one below, is made by Google, right? So, okay, that's the more, name I recognize. Even little things like the number of reviews. The first app has 53 reviews. The second one has 1.1 million. Right? So there's things like that you can just pick up on and look at the little details and go, wait a minute, like, that doesn't make sense. Why would it have 53 reviews if it's made by Google, right? Things like that you can pick up on. So I like to play a little bit of a little game question to try and get some interactivity and have the lesson kind of hit home and help us remember some of these techniques and why we do them. So I want to take us out of the cyber world and into the real world. And I want you to just imagine a scenario where you move to a foreign country and you have to switch banks because you're in a new country. They have different banks than we do. You have to move all your money over to a new bank that you've never heard of. So there's 8 logos of foreign banks, which you're unfamiliar with because they're in other countries. The trick is 7 of these logos were generated by AI, and they'll be my hacker bank. So which bank would you choose? Which logo's real? Any guesses? No.
Bottom on the far right.
Scotia Bank, one of them?
No. So the one that's real actually is the one that looks like Target.
Oh, man.
I believe it's a Japanese bank, so I think it's like after like the Japanese flag. But of course, if you did have to make this decision in real life, one, you probably wouldn't be super like paranoid about it, because in reality, like, what would you do? Kind of the same as if you switched banks here. Like, you Google it, who owns the bank, how many customers do they have? Like, ask Reddit, like, who uses this bank? Ask your neighbors. Like, you just do like basic due diligence, and you'd find one that you trust, and it wouldn't really be that scary in a way. You'd never actually pick a bank just based on the logo, right? But in the cyber world, it's a little bit different. So these are all real. None of these are fake. These are all real apps. And now I have to determine which app is the legitimate OpenAI ChatGPT officially branded app. Wow. So, what I realize is, like, when picking the bank, like I just said, you wouldn't pick a bank just based on its logo. Yet I see, in my work, thousands of times people pick an app just based on the logo. And we think, well, of course, because like the bank, like, you pick a wrong bank, you lose your money, but an app is just an app. What if it's malicious? What if it steals your passwords? What if it tries to hack into your bank? That could be just as dangerous. But again, I don't want to cause anyone paranoia or think, oh, this is just a minefield and I'm going to make a wrong move. Because just like we saw with the App Store example, again, it's the same thing you do with the bank. You can Google, if you want an AI app, just Google, who's the big AI companies? Oh, OpenAI? Well, what app do they use? Right, just those common questions. How many people use this app? 37 or 3.8 million? Right, just do those common things, and it will save you like a world of, it'll do a lot to improve your security just by asking those simple questions, no different than you would picking any other company to do business with. And then there's web browser extensions. So show of hands just to make sure I know where everyone's at. Is everyone familiar with like what a browser extension is? You raise your hand if you're familiar. I guess about like 50-50. So it's a browser extension. You might even have them and not even know what they are. The best way I describe them, they're like these little add-ons or widgets or whatever you want to call it. They live in the upper right corner of your browser. They're generally free, and they just do like quality of life things. Like Grammarly is one, it like corrects your grammar while you're typing online. There's like coupon clipping apps that live up there. What else? Like password managers a lot of times will live up there. And there's other like nonsense ones like weather apps that like help you like track the weather. Things like, I don't know what that hover zoom, I don't know, maybe it helps you zoom in on websites. There's little things. And we don't think much of these. It was just a little free little gadget up there. What can it really do to harm me? Web browser extensions, unlike, this is different from the apps on your phone, so I do want to separate that out. This isn't like the same as an app downloaded on your iPhone. But these extensions, they're very powerful. They live in your web browser. And they have the capability, doesn't mean they are, but they can monitor everything you type. They can monitor all of your traffic. They can redirect you to fake websites. You could literally type in like usbank.com verbatim, and it could just sneak in a fake website. Because these apps have full control, or can have full control over the web browser. And this isn't theoretical. This is one of those that is huge. Every month I see a new article. Millions of people, their security was compromised. All their browsing data was sold off. Introduced malware on their computer. 300 Chrome extensions found to be bad. Constant. It is constant with the browser extensions. And Google and Microsoft, the two big, Google has the Google Chrome browser, Microsoft has their browser, the two biggest players in this space, they're doing virtually nothing, unfortunately. So unlike, the App Store on your phone, Apple and even Google on the Android phones, they put a lot of effort into trying to make sure there's not malicious apps. On the browser, it's like they could care less. In the Google Chrome browser, Google actually recommended, like they have a promoted section, like here's our top apps of the month or whatever. Some of the top apps of the month were malicious. Google didn't know. I mean, they didn't know at the time, but they didn't care. So go through the extensions and remove any that you aren't using. But the question does remain, though. Sometimes you need a browser extension, like Grammarly. Grammarly's probably not going to like hack your passwords in your bank. Like I think they're pretty legit, right? Or your password manager. You're probably going to need that as an extension. So this isn't avoid them all, but when you need one, how do you get it safely? Especially knowing that these app stores are filled with duplicates and advertisements and fake apps. And really, this is the advice I use for not just extensions, but for any app or even website. One, only download something if it's tied to a legit, real business. So like don't just download any random password manager you see in the extension store, but like we know Bitwarden that I recommended. They're a legit company, they take credit cards, they have a phone number you can call, like they are a legit actual business. So that's step one. Step two is to don't browse the Chrome extension store if you can help it, because if you search for like a password manager, as we saw with the Google Authenticator example, like who knows what ads are going to be in the mix. The safest way to do it is just simply go to that real authentic business's website. They will have a downloads button, as you can see here somewhere on their page, and they will say like, here's everywhere you can go to get our software. And you know that is going to be legit. You're not going to accidentally click the wrong thing because you are on their real legitimate website. And this is where they're telling you to go. So doing that, again, is another way to save from a lot of pain and accidentally downloading the wrong thing is just go to the real company's website. So I'll end with one last threat. I gave it its technical name just to kind of leave you in a little bit of suspense. This has been going throughout the cybersecurity community for a while now. It's called ClickFix. And this is a massive threat. I believe the latest stats were over 50% of all malware is delivered by this scam, this threat. So it's been increasing like crazy. So before I explain what it is, I want to rewind for a minute, take a step back, and ask you all a question to ponder and think about before I explain what this threat is. And that is to raise your hand if anyone is familiar with or have used any of these programs on your computer. Right, the run dialog box, command prompt, PowerShell, terminal, a few people, but most people aren't. So I'd say maybe like 20% have heard of these. Like, raise your hand if you use it like at least once a week. One person, okay, 1.5. So for those of you who didn't raise your hand, and I think more people raised their hand than I thought would, but for those of you who didn't, that's what I expected, and that's fine, and that's good, because these aren't programs that average everyday people use on their computer. So what I want to point out is that PowerShell, terminal, these are words that many of us are not familiar with and don't know what this is. And it might sound like I'm talking a foreign language to some of you. So that's good, that's fine. Keep that in the back of your mind. Hold on to that thought. I want to tell you what ClickFix is. So the idea behind this scam, threat, whatever you want to call it, is our computers will break or something will go wrong and we Google search for help. And the threat is, well, we can fix your computer in just a couple of clicks, right? Who's Googled for help online before? I think everyone's Googled for help online. So let's say, we'll walk through a live example. Let's say my computer is giving me errors and it's going to run out of storage. I need to free up some storage. So a common thing is to Google it. So I go on Google, my Mac is full, what do I do? First result, Mac storage 2 full, clear disk space. Seems like what I want. I'm going to click that link. Looks like the real Apple website. Perfect. Read the instructions. Reclaim disk space. That's exactly what I want to do. Launch terminal. One of those words we haven't heard before. Execute the cleanup script. I don't know how many people have run scripts before, but that seems kind of like an odd phrase. Copy the command into the terminal. Again, another word that many of us are unfamiliar with. And run this gobbledygook uppercase, lowercase slashes in the terminal. So this is a fake Apple website. It's designed to look like their website, but it's not. And what it's doing is it is manually telling the computer to go out and get malware and download it. And the first red flag is if we go back, you can see it says squarespace.com, not Apple's website. But and it's under sponsored results. So a lot of these same tricks from, how do I detect a fake app apply here, sponsored results, squarespace.com. But even if you missed that, the bigger red flag here is things that you're not familiar with. Most of you didn't raise your hand saying you were familiar with terminal or scripting or things like that. But it's gone beyond just asking the internet for help. This tactic of getting people to run malicious scripts on their computer has evolved and expanded in recent months. This is a malicious email claiming to be from the IRS. And it says a lot of things, but it mainly says you must provide a receipt that you have read and acknowledged this email. And how does it tell you to provide the IRS that you acknowledge? Oh, well, hold Windows and R, open run, one of the things we don't know, and then this code that says PowerShell, one of the words that we're unfamiliar with, run that, and then your appointment will be confirmed. Again, the red flags, many of us don't know what PowerShell is. Probably never held the Windows and R key together before. A lot of red flags because it's unfamiliar to us. And then lastly are now websites. So if you visit a website, you're probably familiar with the, click the school buses, click the stop signs to verify who you are. So some malicious websites, say you click on the wrong link in Google, in the Google results or something, they will pop up saying we need to verify you, just like you've seen before. They say, oh, well, press and hold the Windows R key to verify. And then here's this code. If you copy this code, that's how we know you're human. And you run malicious code. And in some cases, the website will pretend to crash or pretend like there's some kind of error. And again, if you read it, it's like, oh, well, right click, select PowerShell, again, a word we're not familiar with, open the terminal window, in terminal, something that we're not usually familiar with, and then, run this code. So what's surprising to me, because I've done security awareness for healthcare for like 4 or 5 years now, what's surprising to me about this is a lot of the hacks that I've seen work are things that we're familiar with, right? The hacker might say, oh, your password's about to expire. Click here to reset it. Well, all of our passwords expire. We've all clicked buttons before. Like that seems, oh, I do that. What's surprising is this is extremely effective. So many people have been, like I said, over half of all malware that we see in the industry today is from some version of this. And it's really confusing to me because nothing here is familiar to the average user. Most people don't know what the terminal is. Most people don't know what PowerShell is. So it was initially confusing. Why are people doing this if they have no idea what the instructions are telling them? But I think I realized the problem in education on security is that commonly the takeaways are very tactical, meaning I don't want you to take away, okay, memorize, PowerShell means bad. Okay, if they tell me terminal, don't click it. I think that's how a lot of people think. Like, okay, if the email is from, a Saudi Arabian prince, it's bad. But then the Egyptian prince emails, it's got to be real. Like, don't remember the fine, nuanced things. It's the bigger picture. And I have seen people do that where it's like you tell them, no, that's bad. And then, yeah, it's legit like, oh, but this prince is from Nigeria. You didn't tell me about him. You told me about the Egyptian one. And it's like, no, you got to think bigger than that. And I think that's the problem is we think so tactically. So instead of, okay, Windows and R is a bad key combination or terminal means bad, the problem is hackers, in a few months, few years, there's going to be something different. I don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be some other scam that works completely differently that no one's going to know until it happens. But the common thread is the unfamiliar. It's I've never heard of this before. I've never seen it before. That's the common thread to most of these hacks. So I'll leave you with a real world story about not doing things that aren't familiar to you. And I'll tie to a story my grandfather told me when he decided one day to change the oil in his own car. And he's not a mechanic. He's not a car guy. He has no business being anywhere except in the car, not under the car. But he decided to change, and this was decades ago, so I guess maybe cars were easier to work on back then, so maybe it was more feasible. But he gets under the car, has the oil pan, unscrews the bolt or whatever, drains the oil, and he comes out from under the car, and he goes, this is the weirdest thing ever. I didn't know. I've never seen pink oil before. And if you know, that's radiator fluid. he drained the coolant for the car. So you learned that day, yeah, if I don't really know what I'm doing, maybe I should have someone else do it, or at least ask around before I take an action on this. So thank you. I appreciate it. I do have a small stack of handouts. I can leave those by the door. This covers all the main points of the presentation. And I know we'll have to have some closing remarks, but before, questions, yes.
So, the one common thread that comes up again and again and again is that hacking usually requires the hackee to take action.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so important to remember that how much control, well, except for when you're being stalked at the grocery store and stuff, but how much control you do have.
Mm-hmm.
This week,
Yeah.
we have seen, at the credit union, we have seen skyrocketing numbers of people getting a phone call. Hi, this is your credit union, we just need to, it looks like you have fraud on your account, you need to verify that this is you. I'm gonna send you a one-time passcode, can you put it in? Boom, their account is hacked.
Yeah.
And it sounds legit, it sounds like us, the text they get looks like us, and it's not us.
Yeah.
Don't ever share a one-time passcode.
But and that is good though, because it does seem very scary. Everything's out of your control. But like you mentioned, usually it is the person who has to take an action, not to try to victim blame or say it's your fault, but it does require you to take an action, which means you can do something to prevent it. And actually, that reminded me of one other misconception that I was going to share, but I cut it for time. There was someone who told me oh, you should turn your computer fully off at night, so it's not up any more than it needs to be, so it doesn't get hacked. And it's that's. No one's hacking your computer just because it's on. You have to go out. It used to be that way. A long time ago, that actually was good advice because everything was exposed on the internet. For a while, there was a hack. I think it was Windows XP era, I don't know, a long time ago, where everyone's computer hard drive was accessible over the internet. So you could find anybody's hard drive anywhere, and like we're so beyond that. Like turning off your computer isn't going to help you, because to your point, yeah, it's you doing something on the computer. And in many cases, people feel like they are just randomly targeted because the action that we took that got us compromised could be something so tiny, like you download one wrong extension in Chrome.
Right.
You have no idea, like that's what got you compromised. So yeah, in a way it's scary, but we also have a lot of controls we can take.
You mentioned earlier that that even if you turn off your location and GPS, they still know where you're at. How is that preventable?
Leave your phone home.
Yeah, really leave your phone home. And the other thing that I didn't put on there again for a time saver was it's not just your GPS, and it's not just the Bluetooth at the store, but like everyone has Wi-Fi. So like if you open your phone, you can see all the Wi-Fi signals. Google and Apple, they use that to triangulate your location. So like, GPS is off. The fact that there's Wi-Fi around us, they know, oh, well, that must be where you're at because of the Wi-Fi near you. So really, I don't think there's much you can do other than like not take your phone
Or
with
if you just turn all the power
or turn
off?
all the power off.
Turn the
Take out
phone
your
power
SIM
off?
card,
Fully.
put it in a Faraday bag.
Yeah. There are like for
Jeez.
wallets, people have like the RFID blocking wallet, and they make little bags for your phone that like you put your phone in it, and you don't even have to take your SIM card out because it blocks all service. But like you won't get calls, you won't get literally anything because it can't make any communication with the outside world. So like you could do that, but I mean you're liable to like miss a call. I get Wi-Fi everything. Like it blocks everything. So
That's a
that is an
Faraday
option.
bag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your little like pouches.
Somebody offered me one to me once, not
Yeah.
long ago, and I declined.
Yeah.
I just said the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, it really depends on what you want. And like for some stuff, and I didn't really touch on this because I have to do a lot more research, but even for things like people going to protests and stuff like that, like
Well,
it might not be a bad idea genuinely to put
Yeah.
your phone in a Faraday bag so you're not tied to the location you were at. Like, so I wouldn't use one every day, but like, yeah, if you're going to something like a protest, like maybe you do put your phone in a Faraday bag.
well, then people drive down.
But then people drive and they have cameras, so it can be a losing battle sometimes.
Yes, yes.
I thought it was interesting that I do software development, and the fact that like running the terminal was something that people would do without knowing it. I'm like, that's like 101, don't do that. And so I think the biggest thing is like education like this is hugely important. Like I know they do like education in schools now for using a computer and stuff like that, but basic security stuff like that. Like know what the commands you're running are, because like I saw that and I'm like, I would never. I'm like, you don't do that. Like,
Yeah.
How do you prevent that unless someone's telling you not to do that or you know? So I thought that was very interesting. So I appreciate that.
So maybe, like hypothetically with a Chrome extension, like if you don't know what you're doing, like let's just say you need an extension but you have no idea if this is good or bad. One really easy thing that I know a lot of people do is type in whatever you're looking for and then type in Reddit. Because everybody on there, you'll get so many pull-ups and people will tell you if it looks bad or if there's a better suggestion. I mean, Reddit, there are pitfalls there, don't get me wrong. But, like, if,
Spell it for R-E-D-D-I-T.
yeah,
I think even just like, is this legit? And
Yes.
because sometimes it's like, is this bookstore I want to go to, this discount bookstore I want, is it legit? And it's like, well, even the AI response, well, most reviews are saying that it's, they order it and they don't get their book or whatever, so just avoid it. It's like, okay, I won't buy a book at this unknown bookstore.
Yeah.
But like, you have to do your due diligence. Like, oh, that's a really good price. I
Yeah.
can't find this book anywhere.
And you mentioned AI too, and like regardless of thoughts, good or bad on AI, like one thing that I've heard people say it does pretty well is like fake emails. Like you put a whole email in there, is this legit or not? And obviously like it's not going to be 100% accurate, don't believe it 100%, but like people say it's generally pretty good at reading an email and going, oh, that's a scam. And same thing to your point, like Googling it, like another big threat that you'll see is like a fake invoice. You'll get an email, oh, your credit card was charged $500 for a laptop at Best Buy. Call us at this number to undo the change. If you just type, and it'll have like the Geek Squad logo, and like if you just type in like Geek Squad invoice, enter, it's like flooded with this is fake, this is bad. So like that's another thing too. You get an email, just Google like the nature of the email, and you're bound like the top results will be people complaining. So that's a very good tip. You know. Yeah.
So, if you click on the left side of the address bar, you know, where it used to be a lock and now it's a couple of lines or something, and you click there and you get the dialog box that says, you know, certificate is valid, etc. Is that a useful thing? You know, if you're not sure this website's legit, you click and it says certificate's valid. Is that good?
I don't think it would help you detect a fake website because even the hackers can get one of those certificates. Like the certificate he's talking about, it's part of the computer that encrypts that internet traffic, locks the computer, and hackers can get those too. So like technically you can, because if you look at like who issued the certificate, but you have to really know how that works and who should have been issuing the encryption to that website. So and that's why they got rid of the lock showing it, because just because there is a lock doesn't mean the website's safe. A lot of people misunderstood. They say, oh, well, this website has a certificate, or this website has the lock icon, so it must be good. It's like, well, no, hackers can also encrypt their website and their traffic too. So lack of it is a red flag, but because it's there doesn't mean it's good, if that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
so much.
Kyle. Thank you.